This is a Beyond the Table show.
Welcome to the Beyond the Table show interview with our very own Haaris, DM and founder of Beyond the Table show. Currently working on Chambers Bullets, and a little bit of a surprise for you guys when it comes to VTM. So Haaris, you mind introducing yourself?
I mean, I'll just say this. I feel like I don't even... Damn it. Sorry, I was trying to do like a cool thing and my voice, like, my allergies are, I was gonna say I don't even need to introduce myself, but then I had to clear my throat, so I'll do it anyways. Hey guys, this is Haaris, DM and creator of Beyond the Table. Yeah, I do this shit. Shit's hard. Shit's loud. Damn it, I messed up the joke. Anyways, why don't you guys go and introduce yourselves?
My name is Pastor Pastel Agave, my online moniker. I am one of the editors for Beyond the Table show.
My name is Cass, or Cassidy, and I'm the second half of the editing team for Beyond the Table show.
Will there ever be a third half? Who knows? Probably. Eventually. So, why don't you guys tell the audience here a little bit about what you guys are doing here today with me?
Well, today
We
we're
prepared some
interviewing
questions. Yeah.
Interviewing
Getting
me.
to know the man behind it all. A little insight into how you write, into how you make all this crazy stuff happen. A little bit about the past, maybe. Who knows?
We're gonna delve into my trauma and how that's unlocked my writing ability.
Oh, don't worry, we'll get right into that. Are you ready for your first question?
You know what? No, actually, yeah, I am. Go ahead.
Okay. What was your first campaign as a player? And did your character arc close in that campaign?
So, I'll answer the second question first. I think it's safe to say that most people, that when they first start playing tabletop role-playing games, whether it's D&D, the hashtag Gateway RPG, or any of the other ones, I think it's safe to say with a lot of like newer DMs and newer players, no one ever really gets to close out their arc or finish a campaign or whatever, which, I think that's pretty run-of-the-mill, unless you got really lucky with your first DM ever. That being said, my first ever character... Well, damn, I have to think about this. Oh, fuck. Okay, you guys are gonna hate this.
That's what the questions are meant to do. They're meant to make you think.
Yeah. My first ever character was so boring. I'm gonna be so real with you. My first character was a human fighter who...
Like a 5e?
Yeah, 5e, sorry. D&D 5e. Human fighter. No backstory, no nothing. I was like, I'm here to kill. That was my whole thing.
That was it.
Because at least like the Doomslayer has like lore attached. You know what I mean?
Right.
My character was just like, I just want to kill people. But I will say this: my first session ever is what really, I feel like, stylized how I DM forever. Because my first DM was actually a teacher of mine back in middle school. There was like a D&D club. And I was like, wow, this is nerdy. And then I joined because I was like, why not? And he's the one that kind of like really changed how I do my writing and how I describe things. Because the first time I ever rolled a crit 20, he turns to me, mouth agape, and he's like, Haaris, you take your shield and your sword and you vivisect this man. And I was like, what does vivisect mean? He's like, you cut this man from head to crotch, his entrails spill out. As the two pieces slide down next to you, you look back, reveling in your bloody gore. And I was like, whoa. And I think it's safe to say that that like description style definitely stuck with me. I mean, you guys tell me. You guys have been editing all the episodes. You tell me.
Oh, definitely, I hear it.
That definitely stuck with me. But I'd say that's the first like character ever. And unfortunately, no, they did not get to finish their character arc, but that's okay.
What was their name?
I couldn't fucking tell you. It's probably like knowing me, because I'm gonna be real.
Really...
I'm gonna be real with you. You know the whole like weird naming thing that I do.
Yeah.
That's been a Haaris staple for a long time. So knowing me, it was probably like Guff Magungus or some shit like that.
Okay.
Or like Rap Zacklow or some crap. I don't know. It was so long ago. That's like I don't even want to like put to numbers how long ago that was, because I think that was in 8th grade.
Insert photo of dinosaur you.
Yeah, awesome. No, because I graduated.
Don't say what year.
Why not?
Don't say what year.
Why? Can people dox me with that?
Yeah, don't say what year.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, it was a long time ago. Is the point. So I don't remember the character's name.
Fair enough. Cass, do you want to alternate, or do you want to just have me go?
I'm fine
and
to
you go?
alternate. Yeah. No, we can alternate. We can switch off.
Okay.
At what time in your life did you first start really playing TTRPGs?
So in middle school, like I said, was the first time I played it. I think when I first started like actually like committing to it was in high school, because I had gotten a taste for it, and there wasn't really much around. Like my high school, while having a really thriving like art program, did not really have like cool clubs. Like I remember there was like and I'm sorry to all you weebs out there. I'm a weeb too, to some extent, but I remember going to an anime club and thinking, wow, this is the cringiest, grossest thing I've ever seen. I'm never joining a club again. But I remember there was a group of friends of mine outside. We started playing D&D. I think that was roughly when I was in like 9th grade. And I'd say that's when we kind of like fully committed. And that's really where I like to think I have such an extensive knowledge of D&D now, is because I started so young.
Well, very nice, very nice. Kind of
Very
a
cool,
follow-up
very cool.
question to that is, what was your very first campaign that you DM'd?
Ooh, the very first campaign that I DM'd was the module. I don't know if you guys... For any of you hardcore D&D fans, especially 5e fans, you know this one, Minds of Fandelver. It's
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, it's a classic. It's the perfect like training campaign, both for player and for DM. And I think it takes you from like level 1 to like 5 or 6 or something. So it's like the perfect like starter journey. But even back then, I was throwing my own shit in. I never followed stuff by the book. I always like threw my own random crap in. I think there was one specific detail that I loved, that I thought was so funny, was the idea that there was like regular like steeds and stuff, but I homebrewed the idea in that each like city had like their own exports, of course, but would also have their own style of steed, kind of like World of Warcraft. So there were you would go to a city and yeah, they'd have regular horses, but in some of them they'd have like a bunch of fucking tigers that you could ride, or like a velociraptor or some shit like that.
Which player throughout the course of Chambers Bullets disrupted your plans the most? Who threw you the most curveballs?
Oh man, I think it's hard to say because everyone has done it like to some extent. I'd say the most was probably it's between like Dogon or Clutch. Azura is a close second. I think those three were the biggest mixer uppers, so to speak, when it comes to the campaign. Obviously Breach and Needle have their own fair amount of bits as well, but I think those three are the ones that kind of definitely disrupted. I don't like using the word disruption because I don't really see it that way. I think it's more so they added some additional elements. How about that? I think that's a more conducive way to say it. But yeah, I'd say those three probably.
What inspired you to start DMing? Was it a campaign? Was it the campaign that you mentioned earlier? Or was it a friend? Was it a form of media? What inspired you, Haaris, to start DMing?
So there's a couple things, a couple factors. I mean, the main thing is you and your friends want to play D&D. Nobody knows how to DM. Eventually one of you's like, fuck it, I'll learn. You know what I mean? So that's definitely, that's one part that definitely plays a factor, that I was like, I want to play this. No one else knows how to play it, so I'll learn how to play it. For me, the biggest thing though was, yes, that first campaign, like the way my teacher DM'd, like really, you know, got me immersed. And then, I don't know, from a young age, like, you're in the mines, and, no, I'm just kidding. No, I don't know, I started, I was a really big nerd when I was a kid. I started reading and drawing a lot.
Just when you were a kid?
I might still be one. But, point is that, I don't know, I watched Dragon Ball, and I started drawing, and I was like, whoa, this is cool, and I started reading a lot. And I just kind of was like, wow, I want to be able to make people feel emotions with my art, whether that's drawing or writing or, you know, whatever. And I found that role-playing games is the perfect way, because not only is it interactable for everyone, especially if they roleplay accordingly, but as we've seen for example, in the season 1 finale, is that it can actually move people to tears, whether it's they're attached to their characters, they're, you know, just feel bad for what's happening, whatever. I feel like it is one of the best ways for a player, or in this case audience members, to really feel connected to something and feel emotion derived from that. And that's really all I've wanted with any of my work, is to make someone feel something, you know, whatever that might be.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to pick a player to replace you as DM, which one would you choose and why?
Currently, it'd probably be Zach, aka Azura. I shan't say too much, but outside of what you guys have seen, me and him have cooked a lot on some future ideas of ours. Not to mention just any of the times that I was working on like any like novel ideas or game ideas, we'd have like 2-3 hour freaking cooking sessions, just bouncing ideas off each other, helping me solidify mine. And I'm pretty sure Zach has the most DMing experience outside of me as well. So if I had to choose anyone, it'd probably be Zach. But that might change. Who knows? We have some other people that are throwing their hat in the ring, so to speak, soon. So that might change. We'll see.
We shall see. So, in terms of world building, when you sit down to build a world, well, Cyberpunk is established, but when you sit down to build other worlds, do you think more like a writer, a game designer, director, or what angle do you take when you start to create these worlds for your players?
That's a good question. I'd like to think I look at it from two ways. I primarily I like to think of it as like a game developer. This is what the players see. This is what I want them to interact with. This is what I want them to question, so on and so forth. But what a lot of people don't see, and I'm okay with that because it just helps me, you know, act in the world better, engage in the world better, is I do also have an element of writing in it. Because, I mean, to give you an example, one of the campaigns that I designed a while back, I think in college, was completely homebrew, and I built everything down to the fucking outhouse in the corner and why it was there, where it is on the hill, because that way the water that runs the sewage down has an easier time using gravity to go down the hill into wherever the waste reservoir is. So a lot of the times, like when it comes to what the players see, short answer, yes, I use a gaming mentality, but when it comes to more so why the city is there, why a certain thing is there, I think about the logistics of it. So like, if a city exists, it needs to for a city to be a city, it needs to have some kind of commercial output, right? So it needs to have an export.
Right.
What is that city good at? Well, let's look at the terrain. What's in the terrain that they could use? Cool, if they use mostly like metals and ores, it's safe to say a lot of their buildings will be made from the thing that they have excess of. So then I can design how the city looks based off of what their output is. Or if they're in a city that doesn't have a lot and uses whatever money they have to input things, they would have a lot of varied cultural buildings instead, because they're importing a lot of goods instead, whether that's building materials, so on and so forth. So when I build like homebrew stuff specifically, I use a lot of like logistics to like really solidify why that thing exists there.
Damn, okay. Can't wait to see one of your own like worlds in the future here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple that I've been wanting to bring back that I know a few people have been interested in. But yeah, I would love to do that.
How much time in a week do you set aside for just writing and designing the campaigns themselves?
It depends entirely, or like, oh, there's a session coming up in a couple weeks type beat. Because I feel like those are two different things.
Let's say week to week.
Week to week, I'd say I'd probably spend about at least a minimum of 3 days, and in those 3 days, I'd say like 4 to 5 hours. I like to sit down, because I gotta put on my music. I gotta watch like one show to get me in the mood, or whatever. But yeah, I'd say like 4 to 5 hours. 2 to 3 days. Especially if I know that I have a session coming up the next week. I like to make sure that I have most of everything thought out, because most of my campaigns, I have plot points built out pretty far. Granted, those can change, so obviously I have to like redo things, especially with this cast. Those definitely change. So yeah, I'd say about that much time. A good chunk of that time is spent writing, story hooks, why they would go there, whatever. Then I use the second day to go into the more nitty-gritties, right? Like, there's a hidden thing here, they have to roll this to find it. How should I describe this thing to give them a clue, so on and so forth. And then the last day is usually getting all my maps together from the different Patreon stuff I'm subscribed to, or like Pinterest or whatever. But yeah, I'd say about 4 to 5 hours, 3 days roughly each week.
What core ideas or values shape your DM style?
Rule of fucking cool. That's my biggest thing. I know that, especially with like other RPGs that we might be playing in the future, some people are diehard fans, and I totally respect that. I'm not trying to shit on that or anything like that, but I'm very much someone who's like, if it's cool and there is a risk involved and you can roll for it, I'm more than likely going to say go for it. There's been plenty of examples like that during Chambers Bullets, but to give you one for a more level-headed group of people is D&D 5e. There's plenty of spells that have very specific effects, like for example the spell Vine Whip. Specifically, what it does is you cast out this whip, you hit someone, then you pull them towards you, and that's all you can do with it, right?
Right.
One of my players at the time was like, well, we have this platforming puzzle in front of us, and I can't fly, I don't know these flying spells, I don't have rope, all this stuff. He's like, can I use Vine Whip? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, with the range, theoretically, I should be able to use a Vine Whip to, like, attach to something, swing across, and then attach, swing across, attach, swing across. Again, no bashing, because there's different types of DMing that different types of people enjoy. But for me, I'm always like, yeah, that's fucking awesome, go for it. Just roll me something so I know you actually make it or not. So...
Yeah.
The biggest
so
thing
you were
for
like,
me,
yeah, you can spider monkey.
Yeah, absolutely. You can spider monkey. Here's the thing. If you can convince me why something can work, I will let you roll for it. Because I always like to think it's cool to encourage people being creative, and I feel like locking in too closely with the rules can sometimes box that out, when, you know, the whole thing is we're all playing pretend together, you know what I mean? Like, you should be able to play pretend in creative ways too.
And I think that really shows throughout the entirety of Chambers Bullet Season 1, when, I can't think of a specific moment right now, but characters would approach you about something that they would want to do, and you would literally say in the video, "Hey, what's your argument? Why are we doing this?" And this cast is so incredibly creative that they, you know, would give their argument and would end up rolling for it, and we got amazing plot points because of it.
100%. But there's also been plenty of times where I'm like, no, that's too crazy, or that's too far out, or whatever. So, like, let it be known that I don't just roll over and let the players do whatever they want either.
What's a piece of advice you'd give to new DMs trying to run Cyberpunk Red?
Ooh, it depends on your campaign. If you're playing in the existing world, obviously my biggest thing is going to be fucking consume the lore. Whether it's those YouTube videos you can fall asleep to that tell you the lore, play the game, watch the anime, read one of the books. Biggest thing I can say is consume the lore. It'll help you make the world feel more lived in and real, even if you don't necessarily use all of those elements. That's my biggest suggestion. And I don't know, it's the future. Let your players do some cool shit. Let them get some weird contraptions. You know what I mean? Maybe that's a bit vague, but and probably one that people have said all the time. But yeah, I would say the biggest thing is learn. Don't memorize the lore. Learn enough of the lore that you can squeeze your own little things in here and there.
What's your philosophy on failure in tabletop roleplay, both in mechanics and narrative?
Mechanically, I think that's kind of one question. I think the mechanics feed into the narrative personally. Failure is amazing. I think it's one of the best things about these games. A lot of RPGs and stuff like that, video games I should say, let you reload, let you save, and you can still min-max and stuff, but like there isn't a lot of, I don't want to say punishment, but there's not a lot of consequence when, you know, you don't feel the highs as much if there's no failures. You know what I mean? Me personally, yeah. I think failure is a huge part of any of these games, because you're getting that contrast between oh my god, this insane thing, I barely got it, whatever, whereas if you were getting that all the time, there's not really a dopamine rush, so to speak. And let's be honest, at the end of the day, the reason we play these games is for the dopamine rush, and for you to have the dopamine rush, your dopamine also needs to be low sometimes. And just narratively, I mean, there's so many awesome moments when a player should be able to do something, isn't, and you can very easily tie that back into the context of the situation, a fear, whatever it might be. I mean, look at the first fucking episode, or I think the second episode, Azura going to jump up to that ledge to grab that guy, and he steps on his own shoes. I mean, right off the bat, that's a really awesome narrative point where I could have described it differently, right? You know what I mean? Because it does partially fall on the DM, but failure gives the DM a lot of room to apply what makes a character their character. So another not part of the answer, but another secret advice is really talk with your players about their characters, because I would have done that differently for everybody else, right? If, for example, Needle was doing that, I would have said that, you know, with a critical fail, you break a nail, and the shock of that hurts, and you fall down. You're like, fuck, my nail. For Breach, I would have said your skate foot slips on the wall because you don't have a good enough grip. For Azura, it's you stepped on your own shoelaces and goofed up and fell down. I think failure is what allows you to really personify these characters in a way that they can't always do themselves.
Yeah.
It's a really good moment narratively for the DM, A, to test their chops, and B, just to add more quirkiness, to the characters. Whether that's the NPCs that they're fighting or the players themselves.
One of my favorite moments from season 1 where that's true is Neela and Azura against Dude.
Mm-hmm.
And Azura is supposed to be able to do these like really basic attacks.
Yeah.
And is the bodyguard in this situation.
Yeah.
And did none of the damage.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. I don't know. I think failure is awesome.
What media outside of Cyberpunk influences the way you write and design campaigns?
Books. Straight up. Just books. Fucking The Black Prism. I've been reading The Mistborn recently. That's a really cool magic system, and I found out that book series actually made their own TTRPG, so I might add that to the list. But yeah, I think books, because a lot of the ones, like, let's say outside of Cyberpunk, a lot of, and I don't want to get into the whole like long discussion of magic systems and hard magic versus soft magic and all that stuff, but there is a lot of really amazing worlds where magic and mercantilism and political intrigue and drama is done in very unique, specific ways that I don't think is done very often in media, like movies or shows. Shows a bit more because they have more room and time to work with, but movies especially. I think personally, books like sci-fi, fantasy, doesn't matter. Those for me are the biggest things that I pull from, both in how I write, narratively speaking, but also like mechanically introducing new concepts, new ideas. Yeah, I'd say books. Yeah.
How do you balance player agency with an overarching narrative?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. That's something
Thank you.
that took me a long time to figure out, and I'm still not 100% certain if I figured it out. But it's a really, really simple fix. When you are writing, whether it's one, there's two ways to do this, right? If you're writing something beforehand, like for a fact, this dungeon is gonna have this, and this, and that, and that. I mean, right off the bat in the writing room, what is something that every character can interact with, and just go based off that? What is this character's strength? What is this character's weakness? And what are at least a few elements of both that I can add into this scenario? If you have the time for writing. If you're improving, I think it's honestly pretty much the same as just keeping an idea of who's good at what, who's bad at what, and who is personally invested, right? Some characters might not be invested in the dungeon that you're going into, so find a reason. Maybe, especially if you're improving, maybe flash them a fancy sword. Maybe they haven't had a new item in a long time. Maybe they haven't gotten the chance to really talk with an NPC much. I think there's a few things that you can keep track of like that make it really easy to make every character feel included in overarching story moments, or just dungeon crawls, whatever. It's just a couple things that I like to keep up on my desktop when I'm playing. Is just straight up like the character sheet. They're good at this stat, they're not good at this stat, and then just a few notes. In the current whatever's happening, what is this character's goal, and what have I not seen this character get to do much so far? And I usually just go based off that. As long as I have those notes up, I can pretty much come up with anything.
Are there any DMs that inspire you and you try to emulate or be like when you're DMing?
I think the biggest one, and the audience and obviously you guys can tell me if you see this, if you've watched it, but Brendan Lee Mulligan. my favorite DM. I love every single one of his campaigns. I love the way he DMs. I love the way he is willing to work with players on ideas that might not be completely mechanically correct. He's just a funny guy in general. He's fucking hilarious, even outside the show, but he is probably my biggest inspiration. I would say after that, it would probably be Anthony from Dungeons and Daddies. Same thing, super funny, and he both of them are really good at introducing like new mechanics into things and willing to budge on whatever they did, and I think I like to take that into account. I think I want to hopefully add more like interesting random mechanic that'll never be used again type thing more often. But I think I get it from them the most. Yeah, I think Brendan Lee Mulligan is my first, though, just to be clear. He's the GOAT. He's the best.
How do you foster a sense of shared ownership of the story at your table?
I would say like kind of similar to my answer to the previous question, which is keeping in mind what everyone is looking for, what the character's goals are, and how I can interlock them. I think a big part of it is finding a way to weave people's stories together. Now, I know not every campaign is going to be like that. Some campaigns, the characters don't know each other at all, and they just met. And there is a place and time for that as well. But me personally, one of the biggest things I ask, like in every campaign that I run, is, do your characters know each other? Have they met at some point before? And it's part of the reason why I ask questions like, okay, what were they doing before this? Who were their parents? What did they like to do for fun? There's a lot of those small kind of non-ubiquitous questions that can actually interweave into a larger arc that I don't think people think about a lot. Maybe I'm assuming too much, and maybe that is something that people think about, but I think it's just taking those small and big things and finding ways to write them in together. I think there's plenty of opportunity to do that. I think the only thing a DM needs to really do is just really ask questions and really get into the nitty-gritty when the players are making the characters.
Right, and that's something that I would like to praise you for, because I feel like throughout the entirety of Chambers Bullet Season 1, from what I've been able to edit and see behind the scenes from what the audience has seen, you take a very quality of life approach to these characters, and some would argue filler episodes, but I think that it makes them ever so much more human, and that's why I feel like so many of our audience members were able to connect with the cast, because there's more to them than just the combats and the overarching like cyberpunk narrative. We like Needle loves to watch Watson Horror. Azura eats kibble all the time, has it stashed everywhere. These little things that aren't usually present in a lot of D&D campaigns, where I feel like you've done an excellent job, and so I just want to your accolades for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's one thing that I pride myself on, because that took me a long time to learn.
Are there any celebrities you'd love to see play a TTRPG, and are there any that you'd love to run a one-shot for?
Oh, of course. BB No Money. Or BB No Dollar Sign, straight up.
BB No Money, get over here, get in here.
Yeah, get in here, man. I went to a live show of his once, and I got like VIP tickets, and I got to like talk with him a bit before the show. And I mean, he said he was down. Not with me specifically, but like he said he was down to play D&D. I mean, he's a big nerd. Outside of his persona, I mean, he plays like Diablo and shit. So, yeah, I think BB No Money. Oh my God, Henry Cavill. He's already like such a big like Warhammer nerd. It would be so awesome to see him like on like an actual like campaign. Pedro Pascal, I think would be hilarious. Rahul Kohli, I think would be awesome too. You don't really see him do that kind of stuff, but from He's got like dad dork vibes, so I feel like he'd be into D&D, if not maybe other RPGs. But I'd say those are like my big ones.
You heard it here first, BB No Money. You're invited to the Beyond the Table show.
Yeah, dude. I'm not gonna be cringe. Okay, never mind. Go on.
No, be cringe. BB No Money. Here, one shot.
No,
now.
you can't see what I was doing right now. But I was doing like stupid hand motions, and I was like, nah, I'm gonna stop that.
No, not about that. Well, to follow that up, what are the values or tone that you try to set for your players in session 0, and how do you reinforce that throughout the progression of the story?
So in session 0s, the tone I think is very much set with a lot of it depends on the players, right? If they've done their work, they've written their lore, they've answered all my random, seemingly non-important questions. A lot of it is really truly decided on what that character's outlook on life is and their current situation, and then what they're doing at that time. So I don't think we really did like a true session 0 for Cyberpunk, but I think just because we talked so much about it that we kind of already knew what we wanted to do. But for other ones in the future, it's truly going to be settled on that. So, for example, if you came up to me like, I want to play this game. Okay, cool. We do a session 0. I kind of have to just make up everything. You know what I mean? And even then, it might not fit well with what you're thinking about your character. But if I've sat down with you, we've had these questions, we've talked about it, we've talked about what they did before, why they're here, blah, blah, blah. I think it makes it a lot easier to set the tone. To paint a broader image, I'd say the session 0 should always be about tonally, I guess, is introducing that character and their outlook on the world at that given time. So not necessarily dark or depressing or happy or whatever, but it's very much, this is the character, here's a couple weird quirks, this is how they handle shit, and this is how they view the world. I don't know if that's truly answering the question, but that's the best way I can say it, because I don't like to stick too much to tone. You know what I mean? And I think that's clear in the campaigns. Like, I switch up tone all the time, depending on whatever's happening. So.
Yeah, of course.
Is there an NPC that you love to do their voice more than any other NPC?
I'm trying to think. From season 1. Honestly, I don't think so. I don't think there's. I think.
No preference?
I don't think I have a preference. I will tell you a story though. There was one character, not for the show, but another campaign, like out externally, that I was running once, that I fully fell in love with playing this character. And it was this chatty secretary, like slight Midwestern twang, but also kind of valley girly. So much fun to play. Like, the improv that came off of that was so natural, just like feeding into like that voice. Something about that voice just made the improv come off so naturally. Like that character I fucking adored. I like, anytime I got the chance to play that character, I was so happy.
Could you give us a sample?
I don't know. I'd have to be like in like the flow of it, I don't know. It's just like, like, did you hear? Oh my god, you have to hear this, Becky. So, King Zambalord, I heard that he was actually not the true demon lord. I know, fucking crazy. I know, like, shit like that. Like, it's just so much. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. Yeah. As for Cyberpunk, at least in season 1, I don't think there's like a character that I was like super in love with. Like, not that I hated any of them, just to be clear. But I don't think there's like one that I was like, oh yeah, I love playing this one.
I know we talked earlier about advice that you would give to new Cyberpunk Red DMs, but in general, what advice would you give to people who are DMing for the very, very first time?
For the very first time, read the book, whatever the book is. At the bare minimum, learn how the mechanics work. There's been so many times where I had to stop and like slow down the whole thing and go figure out whatever it was I needed to figure out. I think I've got Cyberpunk pretty much locked down now at this point. But I mean, you guys have heard it in the first probably 15, 20 episodes. My biggest advice is read the mechanics of the book and then think about how to break them and how your players might break them.
Really think about how your characters might break them.
Yeah. No. That's my biggest advice. I'd say secondary subcategory advice is, let me think. Yeah, you have to forgive me. I did just get out of work. Secondary advice would probably be, don't take it too seriously. Don't be like a rules lawyer, and don't be one of those people that's like, this is set in a grim, dark universe, so everything has to be fucking depressing. It's the same thing with like failing with roles. If there's not contrast, if there's not positive things, like let's say you're playing in fucking Warhammer, for example. If there's not some jokes, some positive things, whatever, and it's just dismal all the time, you're gonna start to like get used to it, and it's not gonna feel as dark as it could be. You know what I mean? It's like if you go on like a stint of like watching like a bunch of horror movies, eventually you get used to, you know, the gore or the jump scares or whatever, and it's not going to feel the same. But if it surprises you with some happy moments, some not scary moments, whatever, those lows hit harder as well. So I think an important thing is to not be too stuck in with the vibe of the world itself. Feel free to like play around with it and it be funny, or if the inverse, if it's too happy, feel free to throw in some scary shit here and there, you know?
Occasionally you'll let a player take control of an NPC and play them as they wish. Mm-hmm. Is there a favorite NPC that a player has controlled?
I mean, I know a fan favorite is Dude, but my personal favorite, despite my own frustration, we'll say, is Donut. Donut P freaking Fudge, man. He's so funny. That character
That'll
is
excite
so
all his
funny.
fans.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure everyone's going to be commenting like Donut PW or some shit like that underneath.
What advice would you give to DMs who want to tell a deeper or more emotionally resonant story?
Don't be afraid to hurt your players.
Hey, whack them. Actually, bonk them while you're at it.
I mean, it's so true though, because like when people play these characters, they eventually get attached to them. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
It's one thing if, I don't know, you go into a village and they've all got the measles because none of them took the vaccine. Okay, that's too political. Cut that. Or keep it in. I don't really care. Fuck Republicans. Let's say you go into a village and they're all diseased, right? And this little kid's like, "Oh, please, will you help me? My mommy's dying." And you aren't able to kill the hippogriff that has the special medicine in its left foot in time, and you come back and the kid's mom dies. Yeah, it's like, oh, that sucks, but not because you had any emotional attachment. It's because you didn't get to finish the quest. Now, if you come into this village, and again, another reason why asking these questions are so important, your character creates a bond with this kid. Maybe your character loves fishing and they go fishing with this kid. You have this whole scene where they teach him the best ways to fish and how fishing is a metaphor for being patient with life and all this stuff. And this kid's like, wow, that like really changed my perspective. And the kid bonds with you, maybe brings you a snack, maybe brings you a special item. You now have a special attachment with this kid. And when that kid gets brutally fucking murdered by an orc because you didn't finish your quest in time, you're going to feel it a lot harder.
Right.
So in my opinion, yeah, I know, not to sound like every like fantasy writer ever, like, oh, I kill everybody. I don't try to, but I do feel, and you don't have to kill someone necessarily for that to happen, but use the characters, use their emotions. Your players are attached to their characters, even if they're not exactly like them. So use that.
That's so true, and what comes to mind is like The Last of Us and Joel and how impactful he was as a character, not just to like the actors, but like everybody who played the game.
Yeah.
It's so important to just kind of like. It's morbid as it might sound, and as evilly you might be smugly smiling behind the camera.
Now I am, but
right, right. It is so worth it, especially given the finale of season 1.
Yeah, I think that's case in point. I didn't have to hurt them like that, but all of you audience members can agree. You felt something. And so do the players. And you know what? That can't happen unless you use their attachments. I'm realizing I'm starting to sound like a psychopath a little bit, but anyways. Next question, please, quickly.
If Chambers Bullets got adapted into a live-action movie and you were allowed to pick who played Chamber, which actor would you choose and why?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Holy shit. It needed to be someone beefy, someone who's capable of bulking up if they need to. You know what I mean, but they have to be brown. They have to be brown, right? Like Chambers brown.
Right.
So I'm gonna do a poll here. Let me open up my Google Chrome for a second here. And I'm going to say, maybe to like Zach, this probably won't be a surprise, but to most other people, I'm gonna pull from a movie that's not American. Crazy, I know, but Ram Charan is an Indian actor and film producer. He is one of the lead actors in RRR. Dude has a killer mustache, great physique, can grow that hair super long. I think he would be perfect for Chamber. Between you and me, put up like a picture of him from the movie. Here.
But he would. But he looks amazing.
I know. I'm telling you, he would be like the perfect Chamber. He's like peak what if I could look like. It'd look like that.
Have you ever had to repair trust at the table between the players or between the actual like characters and you as a DM?
I guess it depends. I don't think I've really run into an issue like that. Most of the time, if there is something, it's usually in character, and most of the time, and this says more about the cast than it says about me. They're able to roleplay to that conclusion, whatever that might be, pretty much on their own. I don't think I've ever really had to step in, so to speak. Maybe if someone, and this stuff is probably edited out, but maybe if someone's like going too hard or cutting someone else off too much, I might just be like, hey, give it a second, or like, hey, let this person speak. They were trying to say something. But I'd say that's pretty much the extent of it. I don't think most of the cast, no, all the cast is really good about taking turns and stuff like that. But if any kind of thing like that happens, it's mostly due to just accidentally talking over someone. They need to get their chance, blah, 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 that kind of thing.
Right. As an editor, I can vouch for this. This is a rare occurrence, but I felt you guys would want to know that.
Yeah, it happens from time to time.
What's your prep process like? And do you use any key tools or resources?
Yeah, there's 2 modes, okay? There's oh shit, panic, ADHD mode.
Okay.
And then there's I have plenty of time mode. Which one do you want to hear first?
Let's do ADHD because that's what I'll find more relatable.
ADHD mode is I'm at work. I'm on my lunch break. I've got my Google Doc up on my phone, and I write essentially 4 or 5 different full storylines for an episode, or a session in this case. Then I choose between them. If I can't choose, then I'll roll a dice, like a d6 or something, and then go with that, and then I'll flesh it out further. And then usually by the time I'm off work or I'm back home, I have it pretty much written, and then at that point I just need to grab assets. If I'm in the plenty of time mode, I go back to my overarching skeleton that I have for the story. And I basically look at that and be like, okay, we're at this point in the timeline. This is where I want to end up. We're at this point in between. How can I write this to get to that point that I want it at, but also include what this character wants to do, what this character was affected by last session, blah, 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 blah. But I think I'm a good enough writer that even when I'm in my panic mode, I can usually do that.
Yeah.
And then there's the final mode where I truly have no idea, and the entire session is improv, and it somehow works because I'm the GOAT, and so is the sword.
Because you're amazing.
Of course, and so are the cast members.
What are some of the strategies you implement to keep the world that you're running feel alive and immersive?
You know, honestly, it depends, because a lot of times when you're knee-deep in a session or in a dungeon or an arc or whatever, everything's kind of focused on that. But it's all about the in-between moments. You know what I mean? Whether that's Azura's going out for a ramen and... I almost said Crubble. Fuck. I forgot what it's called.
Kibble?
Kibble. When Azura's going out for like a ramen and kibble run, what would that store be like? Thinking about how the owner would talk, how tired they are. Same thing. I like to tie a lot of logistics back into it. So like, what part of the city is this in? Is it a kind of a rundown? Is it higher end? That kind of decides how I think they would interact with Azura or other people, and what kind of random encounters they might have. A lot of it is also just like dialogue and NPCs knowing the history of events. I think that's the best way.
What is the creative process that you and your players follow when building a character from conception and its evolution throughout the campaign?
I think at conception, it's, trusting that the player will choose some things that they're not good at. Everyone wants to play a character that is good at everything, and that's just not realistic. So I think for me, the biggest thing when I'm working with players is you have to pick 2 things that you're bad at. You just have to. That you're like okay at. You know what I mean? And keeping those things in mind, given how free I am with everything else in the campaigns, I don't mind being a bit more strict when it comes to creation. Whether it's, would you have enough money to feasibly buy this cool gun that you want right at level 1? Would you have enough intelligence to know about said thing before anybody else? I like to keep those things in mind. As for the evolution, pretty much right at the front of any campaign, I basically ask people, like, what do you want to do or be by the end of this? And that can be split into 2 things. What is your character's overarching goal for themselves? And what does your character want to be able to do by the end of the campaign? Those are the 2 questions I think help me kind of set an evolutionary path for that character, whether that's mechanically, stats, story, arc, whatever. I think establishing those up front is the best way to be able to do that effectively.
So when you're doing that throughout the campaign, now that they've told you where the arc, have there been moments where you like disagree with a player on how, like, a decision that they make that you don't think quite fits that, or do you adjust for that?
I adjust. Because people's people what they want and what their player wants and what the character wants will always change. So I always plan to adjust for that.
What do you think is the hardest emotion to draw out of players, and which one do you have the easiest time instilling in them?
I think oh, that's a good question. Honestly, I think fear is the hardest one to pull. I agree.
It's
one thing to be afraid because there's a big bad boss in front of you. It's another thing for someone to like genuinely be freaked out by what they're seeing. I think that's the hardest one to pull for me. And then what was the second part of the question?
Which one do you have the easiest time instilling into people? Like humor, laughter, that kind of thing? Or
Humor and laughter is the easiest. All I have to do is just make my character Sona look stupid, and that usually does the trick. But no, I think laughter and mirth are probably the easiest ones to pull, in my opinion.
A good highlighting moment for that is probably when Chamber, I think he's holding Azura's nunchucks at the shop, and he hits himself with the nunchucks.
I didn't have to do that. I didn't roll anything. I'm pretty sure. I was not spurred on by anyone else. I did that just for the sake of the game, man.
Was it Breach's reaction was, "Oh no."
Yeah.
How do you personally make an NPC feel unique and memorable?
Honestly, I kind of apply the same things I do for player characters. I give them a few quirks, whether that's they're really into cars or they like carving wooden ducks and they got a bunch of wooden ducks around their house. I think those small 2 or 3 quirks are what kind of make a character unique, as opposed to just, hey, I'm the shop vendor, here's your gun, thank you, bye. As opposed to like, hey, I'm the shop vendor, I only sell freaking hammers because I like hammers and I like bonking people, and if you say some shit to me, my big guy right there, that's Honkin' Hammer. He's gonna come over and show you. He's gonna come over and show you what happens if
he's gonna show you some hammer time.
You know, shit like that. I think having it, and it's a lot of people immediately go straight to like accents or voices, and yeah, that's one way to do it. I'm not the best at those. So personally, I like to use like specific like quirks and attitude adjustments and things like that.
how do you build tension and catharsis into systems that allow for total player agency?
Again, I think, not to keep repeating myself, but I think a lot of that feeds into knowing what your players want at any given time and knowing their personality. Whether that's a final goal, a current goal, and how they generally like to achieve things. The best way to do that is to create friction and cognitive dissonance. For me personally, the best way to do that is, for example, and this is a very simple one, most DMs know this, but if Azura is trying to break through a door, it's Durasteel, bro. You're not breaking that shit. Right off the bat, there's some friction and tension just mechanically. But narratively, it's just, you know, if they're interacting with a character, having them interact with them in a way that is not, I wouldn't say opposite, but goes against their usual way of interacting with people. Them having some piece of information that might be tied to that character's overarching goal. Not only is it a good narrative point for yourself to come up with, but it's also a hook for a potential story. It's tension for that character and tension with that character and their journey or their path. I think just you know, either A, create opposites for the character to rub against, or B, dangle something in front of them and make it hard to get. To put it simply, I think those are the two ways that I do it.
And our final question for at least this interview is, you mentioned that you introduced the cast to Cyberpunk 2077 before you all played Chambers Bullets.
Yeah.
How did introducing them to the video game evolve into let's do a TTRPG?
I think, because in my opinion, video games are the next best way to immerse someone in the world. I think them all playing it, getting to live in that world, especially with it being like a kind of a non-linear game, getting to enjoy the random moments and parts of that game and that world, I think is what made them kind of want to do that, but with more agency. Not to mention watching the show helped, because it kind of really set the mood in terms of how characters speak and the characters' tensions and wants and goals, and it kind of helped ground everyone. Because, you know, I love the game, but I think it's safe to say the game, after a certain point, you do kind of become this unbeatable freakazoid. But I think the show, and especially the early parts of the game, really do a good job of grounding the universe that it lives in. And I think for a lot of people, when they get to interact with a world like that, their first instinct once they beat that game or have played their fill is, well, how can I interact with this more? Which is usually why people then turn to mods. Let you do more stuff, but if playing a TTRPG, you get to truly live in that world. And I think that's kind of what pulled people in. A lot of it is just Cyberpunk being Cyberpunk and being awesome, you know?
Did you guys start like drawing, when did the concepts for the characters kind of arrive? Was that when they were character creating in video game, or did that happen later?
That happened later. I think that happened when the anime came out. I think that's when what kind of like solidified it for a lot of people. Is then they started kind of working on their cybersonas. Some of them changed, some of them stayed. I think the game was a good precursor, and then the show is kind of what sealed the deal, so to speak, and then kind of started just drawing our characters and whatnot.
Well, thank you, Haaris, for the time that you carved out for us.
I'm a
Getting
very
able
busy
to
man. Yeah, I appreciate that.
getting able to get to know you a bit more and know a little bit more about Cyberpunk. And, you know, thank you again, and we're so glad to have gotten this little interview with you.
Yeah, of course. Cass, do you have any final words to say?
The only thing that I would say is that, you know, if you're just a fan of media, if you're a fan of content, daily content, hit like, subscribe, and the bell button.
Yeah. Every interaction helps us get closer to like monetizing and making new shows and all that stuff.
I do like the sincere spin you've put on this.
It is sincere. It is sincere. Of course it is. We want to do well, and I'm sure you guys want to see us do well, and all that stuff, even the comments, even the likes, like all of that shit helps, and helps us be able to make, like, I don't know, like merch and things like that we're working on. Who knows? Maybe one day there'll be a Cyberpunk Chamber Bullets novel or game or something, you know, and all that shit helps us get closer to that.
Yeah, we want to take this moment to completely appreciate you all for blowing our minds with how much support. We did not expect any of this, and I know the cast and Haaris and definitely us, we appreciate it so much.
Yeah, I think at the time of recording we're at like, what, 780 subscribers, I think?
790.
90, Jesus. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's actually crazy.
It's crazy. It's wild.
Well, anything you two want to plug, my two editors / interviewers, anything of yours that you want to plug before you head out?
I'm loyal to the soil. Subscribe to Beyond the Table Show, and if you're feeling particularly generous, like this video so that Baby No Money sees it.
True. Share this with
Oh my
Baby
God,
No
yes.
Money.
Tag Baby No Money in the comments.
Yeah.
And oh my god, I would like to take the moment and just kind of like showcase our not just the channel but our show and what's to come. I'm so excited for you guys to be able to see the fruits of what we've been working on behind the scenes and be able to give that to you.
It's worth the
A
wait.
little bit of an Easter egg.
It's worth
Yeah,
the wait.
it's worth the
Trust.
wait. And we might be in it or something.
Guh? What?
Gah.
All right. Well,
Guh.
as always, guys, thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon. We'll see you in the next video.
Yeah, toodles.
Peace.
Bye bye.